The world of business is more complex than ever. The world of human resources and compensation is also getting more complex. Welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast, your direct source for the latest trends from experts inside and outside the world of human resources. Listen as we explore the impact that compensation strategy, data, and people analytics can have on your organization. This podcast is sponsored by Salary.com, your source for data, technology, and consulting for compensation and beyond. Now, here are your hosts, David Turetsky and Dwight Brown.
Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I'm your host, David Turetsky, alongside my friend, co-host, BFF actually, Dwight Brown from Salary.com. Dwight, how are you?
At first, I thought you said BSS. I was going to say, yeah, there's a lot of BSS in there, but...
No, Dwight. No, we will not use that language on this program.
That's right. Don't want the explicit
This is not
version.
getting the E. Yeah.
Yes, but getting back to your question, I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm actually wearing my HR Data Labs podcast 3/4 sleeve Henley t-shirt.
Look at you, sporting the swag, man.
Sporting the swag. But you know why I'm also really excited today?
Why is that?
Because we have a wonderful guest with us who is going to make us cry. So I actually have tissues available. Dr. Mark Scherer. Dr. Mark, how are you today?
I'm doing well, guys. Thank you. Dr.
Scherer, or can I call you Mark?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, Mark. So tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur since the mid-20s, I guess. Ran several different companies, from construction to raw foods to real estate investing. And during those times, I'd have some ups and downs. So I was always trying to improve myself. The largest company I had was about 150 employees, somewhere around in there. We did a lot of construction in Central Texas, and being able to manage that and continue to improve my leadership ability. I was taking a lot of classes, and I was actually more interested in the classes I was taking than working in construction, you know. So sometimes I'd be gone a month at a time, doing different sabbaticals and taking different classes in Europe and throughout the U.S.
Wow.
And like that was always really passionate for me, a desire to go into coaching at some point in time. I guess back in 2008, 2009 is when I transitioned over. And during that time, I had gotten into a pretty severe accident. And I had a friend of mine embezzle a bunch of money from my construction company. So it was like a perfect storm hit. And I was really hoping to put a couple more $1 million in the bank before I went into coaching. But, I wanted to get out, and I was just, anyway, I got my way out. Wasn't the way I would have planned if I had planned it, but I got my way out, and I'm so glad I did. And that's when I really started to focus on coaching and putting this system together. And over the last, since 2008, 2009, I've studied with a couple of other coaches, got some other different modalities in my system, and I started getting clients all over the world by word of mouth. And I guess about 6 years ago, I started Encompass Life as a university, so I could train people. My clients were asking me, hey, where can we learn to do what you're doing? Is there a certification process to do so? And so I started Encompass Life as a coaching certification school and also a leadership development academy. And got a couple of books coming out. And, yeah, we're really growing a company now.
That's awesome. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what your company focuses on as we get into our topic. But one of the things we love to do with our guests is to ask, what's one fun thing that no one knows about you, Mark?
Fun things. How about different?
Okay.
I was raised on a cattle ranch, and I've done artificial insemination, palpation, and I've pulled calves.
Wow.
Nice.
Not many people can say they've done that.
No,
that's true.
And if you've watched television or you've been to a farm or you've seen these kind of activities, like I watched Clarkson Farm on Prime Video, it's heart-wrenching, it's hard work, but it is some of the most rewarding work in the world, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is. And you go out and get up a project done and make the progress on the project every day is really, really beautiful. Even if you're out just harvesting crops, it's so
Right.
yeah. It's you're one with nature out there. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of reasons why people think of farming as almost it's not a religion, but it's obviously it's a way of life, but it's something that they couldn't imagine doing anything else, right?
Yeah, spiritual connection for sure
Exactly.
to the earth and the wonderment of life.
Yep. Well, and that brings us to our topic for today, because what we're going to try and do today is we're going to talk about something a little different. It's going to be a little emotional, and that's on purpose, because we're going to be talking about increasing your emotional intelligence. So, Mark, what is the problem?
Hey, everybody. Got a quick question for you. Is your job easy, stress-free, and full of rainbows and sunshine every single day? Yeah, I'd say that's a big fat no. Hi, I'm David Noe, host of Speakeasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners, and proud to be part of the Work-Defined community. Take a step down into my Speakeasy live on LinkedIn and YouTube, where we tackle HR and business challenges through raw, uncut, unfiltered conversations. This is HR like you've never heard it before. Bold, real, and full of practical takeaways. Real guests, bold insights, authentic conversations that drive change. Catch every episode on demand through your favorite podcast platform or all the content at speakeasyhr.com.
The problem is people have wounds of unhealed stuff from their childhood, and anytime a situation reminds them of that unhealed wound, they react the way they did as a 3 or 4-year-old and immediately go into a reaction. And whatever they used to survive as a child is what their automatic response is as an adult. So imagine if you have a company and you have an emotional intelligence of a 3 or 4-year-old, like I said, and reactive. I'll go silent and go to my room, lock myself in my office, lash back out at somebody, throw a fit, all those things. And as soon as that emotional reaction kicks in, the person loses higher brain function because they're going into the fight or flight response they did as a child. So, to be able to shift out of that, or the way we measure emotional intelligence here is the time it takes from the person to go into a reaction to be able to have an effective action show up again. And the gap between the reaction and the effective action is a measurement of emotional intelligence. So if you can cut that down to milliseconds or seconds, man, you're doing great. And how many people desire to work with a company or especially small business, medium-sized company where the owner goes off?
Right.
That kills a company.
Right.
I mean, people are going to leave really quickly, especially in today's world. If somebody doesn't like it, like the way the personality is and the owner is, and they don't have like a higher purpose, they're out of here. It's not like when my dad was working, he spent 40 years at DuPont or whatever he did. That type of loyalty is not here in today's world. People are always looking for what's next.
And then also, I think maybe in my parents' generation, certainly, they took hierarchy as the ability or afforded the ability to have low emotional intelligence. And, you just dealt with it, right? You just kept going because
it was just accepted.
Exactly. Yep. They had the right to, because they're in the hierarchy, they were above you. And if they start screaming at you for whether it's your fault or not.
Yeah, great point. And a lot of people talk about when people stay in their comfort zone. Well, I found that the word comfort, when people talk about being in a comfort zone, 90% of the time, that's all. You said BS at the beginning of the show. I'm going to say BS here.
Yeah, BS is okay.
So it's really what people are in is their familiar zone.
Right.
And a lot of people are living in a familiar zone of being really, really miserable in their life. So when they have that misery there, anything that triggers another level of it, they go in that state of reaction very quickly. And whether it be a business owner or a team member or whatever, but when somebody's living in that heightened state of anxiety and misery, it doesn't take much to set somebody off.
Is that the reason why we accept it, is because we're used to it? And, talking about woundings.
Yeah, and the way it's language. Oh, you're in your comfort. You're in your comfort zone. Well, I'm in my comfort zone. Oh yeah, but are you really? Are you really comfortable being miserable? Are you really comfortable being reactive?
It's what you know. And
It's what you know. Yeah.
It's what you experience. But it's language is a really, really important part of what we're doing here, because every word can produce a different effect chemically in the body.
Right. Well, I know from my past, in not only the experiences with my parents, but also the experiences with work, yelling was a really huge part of my growth, right? I would get yelled at by my dad, or I got yelled at work. In fact, my first experiences at work, I used to have a boss who stood over my shoulder to watch me work. And when I got one letter wrong on data input on mainframe focus, I got yelled at right then.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an immediate feedback, and I didn't love it, but I accepted it because she was my boss.
Yeah.
So.
And interesting, you said the word, I didn't love it. So anytime you're using the word not, that's basically what the person is doing is lying by omission. They're not telling like what's really going on. You're telling what didn't happen. Like, hey, Mark, where are you going today? Not Houston. I'm not saying the truth. It's the way it is. It's a way to lie by omission. Where are you going? Hey,
it's true.
Wait, right? Where are you going? Not my girlfriend's house.
Yeah.
But so are we trying to save someone's feelings, or are we trying to get around the issue, or what are we trying to do?
You're trying to protect yourself so you don't get into trouble, is what that all is.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, like you said, if you got yelled at as a kid, so you learn to speak in these ambiguous terms, because if you nail yourself down,
like nailing Jello to the wall.
Right.
I did not eat that candy, Dad.
Where'd you go? Went to the library. Well, the library was closed. Oh, yeah, we found the other library was closed. And,
one lie after another.
But I mean,
one after another after
these
another.
comfortable zones for ourselves, right, Mark? I mean, it's hard living in a world the way it is. I mean, with social media, with pressures at work, with pressures at home, with financial pressures, it's so hard to kind of be quote unquote okay. So how do people deal with trying to protect ourselves and protect our sanity, for lack of a better way of saying it?
The only thing that you're trying to protect is your lies.
Mm.
You're not trying to protect yourself. Truth requires no protection. What requires protection and defense is lies. To really have the life you love, you got to find what limits you the most is also what you hate the most about yourself, and also what you defend the most. And the way the person defends is by speaking in vague terms, by lying, by misdirecting, by all that stuff. So everybody says, it's, like what you said, it's really, really hard to do this. That's what I used to think. That's the way I used to speak as well. And when I found out the way I used to live was really, really hard, once I shifted it, I was like, holy crap, that was hard. Working with people over the years, it's like, they'll say, oh, this is going to be really, really hard to shift. Once somebody makes that shift, I go, hey, you'd like to go back to where you were? Oh, hell no, that was hard. The stress, the worry, all that stuff exists when we're trying to cover stuff up. It takes all the RAM. I mean, I remember going to be late to an appointment, and I would practice my excuses of why I was late before I would get there. I was like, golly, man, and all that stuff it wore me out, man. That false front. And here's how I present myself to the world, and here's how I really feel behind that false front. Whatever that schism is, chasm or canyon between those two things, the bigger the split, the harder it is for that person to live their life.
The weird part is that so often people don't realize when they're in the midst of it how hard it actually is for them. I know I've had that in aspects of my life where I didn't have a clue until it finally got called out, and there could be behavior change, and all of a sudden I'm looking back going, holy smokes, that sapped every ounce of my energy.
Yeah. Yeah, even in marriage, even in romantic relationship. I mean, the way my parents dealt with stuff was they just went silent and kind of had hallway sex. You know what hallway sex is?
No, I'd love to hear about it, though.
It's where you pass each other in the hallway. Screw you too. You know, all
Wow, that's not exactly what I thought it was going to be, but okay.
No, but it's interesting.
but it's all done under the breath. It's all done. And because having those conversations, everybody thinks is really hard. I mean, I remember thinking I was going to have a conversation with somebody, they were going to leave, and it was going to kill me to explain this. And then once I did, I'm like, oh, what the heck, man? I held that in for how long?
Right.
And all those little things we hold in are like little nails in the coffin of relationship, or in a business, nails in a coffin of profitability and productivity.
Right, but the difficulty, everybody's got, like you mentioned at the beginning, everybody's got woundings. Everybody's got those scratches on their heart or scratches in their psyche.
Yeah.
And the protection of them enables them to live another day with debt, with interest rates, with kids and how crappy they're doing at school, with dealing with a spouse or dealing with an ex-spouse. All of those things are so hard in the world in which the U.S. at least lives in, that, I mean, that's how we deal with things, is just keep moving forward like a shark, and you can't stop. You got to keep moving forward.
Yeah, all these patterns were put into place for that individual to survive whatever happened at that moment. Those pains in the childhood, those traumas, and it could be like, I remember when I was a kid, I was choosing to remember what movie it was, some movie with a baby elephant in it. And we lived on a ranch. And I was like, man, I want a baby elephant. We got plenty. No, you can't have a baby. Like, what do you mean I can't have a baby elephant? I mean, everybody has their own little trauma things. But I remember like a little 4-year-old was like, we got land, we got hay. Like, what do you mean? They can make fertilizer. So whatever those traumas occurred and the behaviors associated with it, those things, those protection mechanisms came up. What those protection mechanisms do is they have the person survive, but that's all they have the person do is survive. They never really thrive in their life because there's a whole bunch of not statements associated with the trauma, like life shouldn't be this way, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, and they surround that trauma with a whole bunch of not statements. And all those things affect their ability for creativity, enthusiasm, intuition, being able to author their life playfully. Most people will shut down and say, like, if anger shows up, if somebody's reactive, they go into fear with anger, or they will go up over the top of that anger. You're not going to treat me this way because my dad treated me this way. So they have all those unconscious patterns, and those unconscious patterns is a direct correlation between that and emotional intelligence. Then that person will never really thrive. They may survive to a greater level, but they'll also be living in debt. They'll also be living like their own conversations are creating reality, not the reality creating the conversations.
And I think the microcosm of work makes those things even more difficult because there are certain things they can control and certain things they cannot control, or they believe they cannot control.
Yeah, the only thing somebody can control is their own body chemistry. And once you can manage that, that's the key.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe. This podcast is made possible by Salary.com. Now, back to the show.
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we shift the pattern and how you can get more control on this.
Yep. So, you can go to therapy and talk about stuff for 20 years, right?
And spend a lot of money.
And spend a lot of money.
Exactly.
Right. Yep. So there's we have a thing called the quantum leap technique. And what it does is, instead of going and trying to fix all that stuff, what we do is I pretend you already fixed it. Give yourself the feeling in your body, like all the stuff that happened in my childhood, all the issues I'm having at work, all those things, just like somehow or another, just pretend you got it and they made it, you got it, make it okay. That somehow or another it all worked out. Don't try to do it mentally. no mental activity at all if you can do it. Just have your body go into a state of relaxation. If the body's in a state of fight or flight, all you're doing is running in your brainstem. Everything is fight or flight when the body has a level of tension. So you give your body a brand new level of ease. As you do so, the body chemistry begins to change. And once the body chemistry changes, thoughts change and the person has access to a new reality instantaneously.
So is that concept, I'm trying to be very pragmatic in the way I phrase this question, but is that kind of the way in which we hope a vacation would be, where we're living a different reality? We escape what we have today and we go to what we think ideal might be if we had the best alternative of our life. We try and vacation in a place where our life would be better, simpler, more exciting, whatever. Is that what you're talking about?
But that's so fleeting, right? You have to go.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's so fleeting, and then the issues are never getting addressed.
No.
So what we're doing here is having. The way to do it is to do it. If you got something up that's really, really tough for you to solve, and maybe it's a repeating pattern. Well, there's 4 things that keep a repeating pattern into place. Those 4 things are shame, blame, guilt, and hate. So rather than trying to work on the repeating pattern, when there's all this glue holding it into place, first we got to address those 4 things. Then as those 4 things get scraped off the jigsaw puzzle, the glue that's holding the jigsaw puzzle, the puzzle starts to fall apart. And all we're doing here is activating. There's glands in the body that produce chemicals that enhance imagination, intuition, wisdom, enthusiasm, in other words, problem-solving abilities. Mm-hmm. So there's a way to access these chemicals in your body to be able to produce them on command. In fact, that's the most important time to do it is when it's the toughest time for you to do these things. That's when it's most important for you to be able to do it. And then those patterns, you're able to become effective. You become the solution in your company. If you're a leader or if you're a team member, or if you're choosing to move up in your company, I mean, you think people want people who complain in a level of leadership? No, you become the solution. And there's ways to produce breakthrough thinking in a matter of seconds. Einstein said, you have to change the thinking that created the issue to solve the issue. Mm-hmm. So you can't go into it with the same tension that you created it in. It has to be a full consciousness shift to bring a solution to it. Otherwise, it's still going to be in survival.
But then people have to be ready for that shift, right? They can't be in fight or flight mode while they're doing it. They can't go, hey, I've got this rabid dog who's chasing me. I really wish my life were different right now. They can't make that change consciously when they've got all that.
Yes, they can.
Shame, blame, guilt, and hate.
There's a system for it. Like Dispenza and those guys, you sit down and meditate for a couple hours to get into this place, right? And then have a new renewing of the mind and all that stuff. But there's a way to live in it. There's a way in being able to live in a solution environment. And that's really our natural state. What keeps us out of that natural state is the lies we tell ourselves that produces the toxicity and the tension in our body. There's a book out called Language and the Pursuit of Happiness. He has one for language and pursuit of happiness and language and pursuit of happiness for business. I studied with one of the proteges of the guy who developed that system. And there's 6 different speech acts we can use as humans. Assessments, assertions, declarations, requests, promises, and offers. Most people, they speak assessments, in other words, opinions, as if they're facts. And if you ask them why there's, you can say, hey, Dwight's really rude. That could be their opinion, right? And you could go, well, why do you say Dwight's really? Well, he's just a jerk, and he's really inconsiderate, and he's really, whatever. I mean, just making up something, But none of those have any facticity to them, right? They're all those things were all opinions as well. You're going to say Dwight's really rude. Hey, he walked into a room, grabbed a plate of food, threw it in David's face, He walked by another person, lift up his leg, let out a little toot, you know.
That would be more like Dwight, actually.
More like Dwight. but see,
you mean there's something wrong with doing that?
no, it's great, dude. Depends who you choose to be in life, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but so when somebody's living in these ungrounded assessments, what that does, it produces this chemical cocktail in the body that ramps up the emotional charge with the person. If you listen to the news, that's what the news is designed to do, to ramp up emotions in people. And then all they do is they speak taglines with no facticity behind it. And they live in a hallucination of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way to break that chemical cocktail.
Does it ultimately all come down to fear? Fear is in sort of that fight or flight idea. I see the tiger, and that tiger could eat me. And modern day is I see the tiger, but the tiger is in the zoo and behind a great big fence, but I'm still seeing the tiger, and the tiger could eat me. Is it fear of what could happen, or is that not a component?
The fear is life is happening to me. That's the fear. The truth is life occurs for you. Whatever's happening on the inner shows up on the outer. Everything, if you listen to Henry Ford, if Henry Ford says, you believe you can't, you can. If you believe you can. Einstein says imagination is more important than knowledge. I remember reading a thing about Einstein. He said, if somebody gave him an hour to solve a problem and put a gun to his head and we're going to kill you after an hour if you don't solve this issue, he said, I would spend the first 50 minutes coming up with the correct question to ask myself and 10 minutes solving the issue. Everything that we really achieve that brings peace and ease into our life is through an inside remembrance. So even Tesla talked about frequency, right? All these guys who did breakthrough results, they had a particular way of using language and thinking that produced it. It wasn't like their brain was bigger or any of that stuff, but they had a way of being able to language themselves and to be able to language the issue. Most people ask some really, really stupid questions, and they get answers. Hey, why am I such a screw up? Why can't I do anything right? Why can't I solve this problem? And then they get bombarded with thoughts that support the answer to that question. The question is, what's my life like at 100 times greater love? What's my life like at 100 times greater ease? And you give yourself the feeling of it first, and then you'll start to see the vision of it. So feelings are the gateways of memories. If I was to ask you guys about maybe a beautiful romantic encounter you had, a terrible romantic encounter you had, right? If you were able to feel the feelings of it, you go, oh, the weather, the lighting was this, I remember the smells, I remember the sounds, and you can go back into the memory of it and call great, great detail into it, right? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even your body will respond. You start to get a body response. All you're doing is going into the memory of it, but you're still getting a physical response in the body, even though there's nobody else there, right? So there's a way to produce a brand new feeling, and feelings always access memories. So there's a way to produce a brand new feeling, and if it's a brand new feeling, the memory can't come from the past because it's a brand new feeling. So you're going to get a memory from your future, and you'll start to see a picture of what life is like at 100x love or 100x success or 100x greater level in your company. And then the way to achieve this is you ask yourself, what characteristics do I have in this new life? And the most important characteristics for you to be able to answer while you're in a state of ease is, how do I handle a kerfluffle when I'm 100 and I have 100x profitability? My wealth is up 10x or 100x. If an unexpected bill shows up, how do I handle that? Because it's always the reaction that's producing the result. The results don't produce the reaction produces the result. In other words, if you yell at your wife, what results does that produce? Divorce, right?
Sure.
So there's a way to to negate those reactionary responses. What if my life look like now that my wife and I really, really love each other? Now that we really, really get along, how do we handle kerfluffles? How do we handle kerfluffles with employees in our business? You ask yourself those questions, and when you can feel, the tissues and all that stuff, when you can feel them deeply enough, you program your subconscious with those new actions, and your subconscious will automatically do them. No thinking about it, because if you got to think about it, you're ready too late. It's different. I mean, really a different way of doing things. And this is how I got the PhD thing was all on this. And people were going, "Holy crap, guy, you're onto something." This is really a different way of doing it. Rather than try to think positive thoughts and don't think negative thoughts. I did that for 20 something years. It was like herding cats, man.
Absolutely. Hey, are you listening to this and thinking to yourself, "Man, I wish I could talk to David about this"? Well, you're in luck. We have a special offer for listeners of the HR Data Labs podcast. A free half-hour call with me about any of the topics we cover on the podcast or whatever is on your mind. Go to salary.com/HRDL consulting to schedule your free 30-minute call today. Well, and Mark, sorry, I've tried in certain parts of my life to model what you're talking about, to not react right away with the visceral reaction, and to take things a lot more differently than I would in the past. I'll give you an example. Huge Ranger fan. They lost their first game against Florida. And instead of getting really physically upset by the loss, which I have in the past, thrown a lot of things at a lot of televisions, and which has cost a lot of money. Instead, what I did was I said, 7-game series, it's okay. They can come back, and if they don't, and if they lose, it's okay. It's not going to change my life dramatically. Yes, I'll be happy if they win, but I can't get too high or too low. I can't experience that until the end result happens. And when it happens, what I'm going to try and do, what I'm going to try and model is, that's why I'm still here on this earth, to see them win a Stanley Cup, and it'll be next year, or next year, or next year. So I've tried in that little microcosm, and for those of you who know hockey and Ranger fans, we're manic about this stuff. In that way, I'm trying to manifest that, and then I'm trying to use that as examples in other parts of my life to say, well, if I can do it for that, then I can do it for this. Because I guess my question to follow up is this a gestalt? Is this it happens across all of our feelings, all of our woundings, all of our reactions? Or can we target it at certain things first and then be able to do what I'm trying to do and model my new emotional intelligence in hockey for everything else?
The system, once it starts to come in and starts to reprogram the person, all areas of their life change simultaneously and exponentially. So somebody may come in with relationship issues or health issues or business issues. Well, they come in for a business issue. Well, next thing you know, the relationships are improving. Their health is improving. When I remember back in the 70s, I was reading articles and they said 95% of all disease was caused by stress. Now, you don't see those articles like that anymore. And then the last time I saw it, they said 98% of all disease is caused by stress.
There's a lot more stress now.
Yeah, a lot more stress now. So, and if you don't think that's by design, I mean, there's something going on to create customers. There's ways for us to live. There's ways for us to live in a way where we can be calm in the eye of the storm. Going into a state of fight or flight in a state of tension doesn't solve the issue. It makes it worse. So the person once they begin to get this comparison, oh, this is what this produces. Oh, this is what this produces. Then most people start getting into this stuff because the pain is so great they can't take it anymore. But at some point in time, it starts to become a benefit. And once it becomes a benefit, that's when the gas pedal really goes down. And when you were speaking like, I try to do this, I'm doing something different and all those things. But for this to work, you have to speak with specificity, because the greater levels of specificity you speak with, the greater the level of emotions associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
For this to work, you have to speak in such a way that you change the feeling in your body. If you're just doing it mentally, it's a struggle still, and you may, like say, maybe you don't react as greatly, but you're still not happy and enthusiastic about life. Hey, honey, they will say, hey, honey, no matter whether my team wins this year or not, we're going to go out and celebrate the end of the series.
Mm.
So you do something that's going to produce peace, pleasure, pleasure and peace together, and really replace it with something very specific. Wow, whether they win or lose, hey, honey, we still win. And you talk about throwing stuff at a TV. I was at a playoff game, watching a playoff game with friends at a party a long time ago, and the guy took out his gun and shot his TV. So throwing.
Well, actually, Mark, that's the difference between a New York reaction and a Texas reaction. Actually, New York City reaction, they took multiple shots at the television.
Yeah, I said, "See you guys." When the guns,
that's
when alcohol and guns come out, looks like I love guns. I love alcohol. I used to love alcohol. I love guns. Not at the same time, man. Not at the same time.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh my Lord,
those two don't mix.
No.
It was one of those big box TVs. Remember the big?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, that's even more dangerous too, because of the fumes that might come out of the tube.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
12 gauge, man. He took 12 gauge to his TV.
12.
Hey, if you're gonna do it right.
Yeah, exactly. I know that TV's not around anymore.
Over somebody dropping a pass. I was like, whoa.
The hell with the 22. Give me the shotgun to take out the TV. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, the 22 at least will be accurate, I think. The shotgun, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And talk about woundings. That would, for the shotgun, probably would have
a whole different level of woundings.
Yep.
But I think that's kind of the problem, though, is that emotional reaction we get from that sports, whatever, dropping the ball or whatever. That's a perfect manifestation about like things at work, like. I drop a ball at work, or somebody drops the ball at work. The first thing we do is we get angry or we get upset about it instead of trying to help the person.
Yeah. You ever watch a Shark Tank?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You ever hear that? I should remember how I say her last name. Blonde hair, real sharp blonde hair, Lady Barbara, something,
yep.
Right? I saw an interview with her, and she started her real estate company with $1,000 loan.
Hmm.
And this was, when I saw this interview, it was a while back, and her company was worth over $1.5 billion at that time. And they were asking her, what had her become so successful? And I was like, man, I got to hear this, And she goes, we don't have the best real estate agents. She goes, we don't have the best client list. But she goes, all of our agents have one thing in common. I was like, holy crap, what is this? She goes, in real estate, you win some, you lose some. She goes, all of our agents, if they lose a deal, they immediately get back up and they get back in the game. There's no delay they don't go back and go lick their wounds or go to the bar, drink them off. They get back up and get back in the game. Hey, lost one, let's go back in the game. So that particular mindset or those particular behavior patterns is, let's see how to say that. Whatever the reactionary patterns are, yeah, they have a trauma surrounding them, but they become, at some point in time, they become a habitual pattern, right?
Absolutely.
So once the trauma begins to be shifted, now if they're still doing it, that's just a habit. So all you do is create a different habit, and what a habit is the subconscious is doing all the behaviors for you, even to the, like, you don't have to think about it anymore, and that's the big deal to do it. Like there's conscious unconsciousness, right? You don't know,
yep.
And then there's unconscious unconscious, conscious unconsciousness, conscious consciousness, and then unconscious consciousness. So as you move up in scale, right, I'll do it again. Unconscious unconsciousness.
I'm trying to,
Yeah, unconscious unconsciousness. Like,
right.
I don't even know what's going on here, man. Like, blah, 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 right? And then conscious unconsciousness. Like, you start to see that you're unconscious in certain areas of your life. You go, hey, there's some behaviors I could do. Like, you're noticed about throwing things at the TV. Like, oh my God, unconscious pattern. What do I choose to consciously change it? So then you become consciousness, where you're actively taking those things and create a new behavior in that moment, right?
Right.
Then unconscious consciousness is where those patterns have been in you, and it becomes your normal reaction. So the key to get to that unconscious consciousness to greater and greater and greater levels is the key to really being able to go past your glass ceilings and continue to and improve your thriving again and again. So there's systems to be able to do it. We can reprogram the subconscious in minutes or seconds instead of. I mean, if you can reprogram your subconscious in minutes or seconds, would that be worth it to you?
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
I mean, it would improve not just our personal lives, but our work lives, because then people would want to work with us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To go back to what Dwight was saying about fear, I think that the problem that we get into, again, in my life, the problem I get into, I won't speak in generalities, is I fear so much about what might happen that it definitely prevents me from making that right decision consciously. And so the unconscious decision to make that right choice consciously hadn't really approached yet, because I haven't been able to allow it to.
What I found, what people fear the most is giving up their excuses. That's what people give up. They fear giving up their identity. Who would you be if you didn't have that fear? Who would you be if you didn't have that story? And that repetitive story again and again and again. And a lot of people talk about people have a fear of failure. What I've found out is people have a fear of success.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is they're going to have to change their life to become successful. And they fear the change that it takes to be successful. They're living in failure. So it's not like they're terrified of failure. They're living in failure. They're going from paycheck to paycheck or whatever, all that stuff. So they're living a life of failure already. And to go, like, how you like to go to success? Well, just require me to change. I'm not sure if I want to change that much. The person has to be able to see it, taste it, smell it. And then they'll go, oh, and trust, and they then start to take action, and then the things start to happen for them. So you got to get a person into a whole new body chemistry to be able to create these shifts. And if there's something that's really traumatic from the past that's holding on, that's holding a space, that you got to find those things and not just forgive it. Where the power really comes from is finding the blessing in it. And realizing that was an integral part of your growth. You got to be able to get the lesson in it.
And embrace it.
So much swimming in my head right now.
Yeah, I know. Well, and I think that gives us an opportunity to kind of say, this might be a good time for people to stop and reflect on that. Because I think especially that last piece means so much and would mean so much to a lot of people that I think it's probably a good place to end, because I don't want to remove that focus, because that was a really kind of brilliant way of being able to say to people, you need to look back, find those things and embrace them and challenge them and feel how that moves you forward, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Scherer, Mark, thank you so much. That was awesome.
Welcome, guys. And thank you for having me on the show. Really pleasure meeting you guys. Y'all have a great chemistry together. BFF.
BFF, BSS,
Yes.
whichever one you want to use.
and Mark, we're going to have you back on, because one of the things I really want to explore in the future is woundings in the construct of work.
Yeah.
And how actually, very specifically, probably how to deal with them, and in the context of probably workplace violence, or even in the construct of meetings that go south. I think that would be probably pretty fascinating to a lot of people.
Yeah. Can I make a quick comment about that?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some woundings become the person's success method. But those woundings will only get the person to a certain level of success. I'm not going to let somebody take advantage of me or whatever. Like they can, I'll give you a real quick example. I worked with a company. They were doing 25 to 35 million a year in sales and doing pretty well. And they're attempting to double their revenues. Hired a couple of business coaches to do so. They were still stuck at that rate. And they had a lot of anger in them from childhood stuff. So anger propelled them to become that level of success. I'm going to do this to prove my dad or whatever, right?
Right.
That's all that anger would allow them to do. So when I worked with them, they went from 35 million to 350 million in a year.
Wow.
And now they're hitting $1 billion within 3 years in a service industry. And that's crazy growth, guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, those wounds that the person used also can become their success method. And when they start getting success from it, then they tie those things together, and it gets even tougher for them to create that shift. So it takes awareness, and it takes a lot of courage to look at yourself at this level.
And if people need to get over that, they're going to call you.
Awesome.
Again, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Dwight, thank you.
Thank you. A lot to think about here.
And thank you all for listening. Take care and stay safe.
That was the HR Data Labs podcast. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you know anyone that might like to hear it, please send it their way. Thank you for joining us this week, and stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe.